So now let's talk about adding simple standard holes in our drawing. So I have got two of these blocks, and these two blocks are created with separate bodies. You can see here that we have two different bodies, the first one on the top and the second one on the bottom. Now I'm going to create holes here, and for that I'll start with this hole wizard. If you click this arrow, you can see we actually have three different options here. So we have the simple hole wizard, then we have advanced hole and thread. We'll talk about all of these. Let's start with hole wizard first. Alright, now this is what we have. Well, the first option here is favorite, and we'll get to that in a moment. This will actually let you create your favorite set of hole and save it permanently, but for now we'll start with the hole type. So right now all of these 9 hole types are available for us. So we have the counterbore, the countersink, the simple tapped hole, and all of these other hole types which you can select from. Now in this case, I will select the counterbore hole and then select the standard. So right now this NC standard is selected. I'll keep this one selected, but you have all of these other hole standards to select from. Alright, then we have the type of bolt which you can select again from here. So you can just select any kind of hole from this, and again in this case I'm just going to select the hex screw. Now the size here. So the size of this hole is 1/4 inch. So that's the smallest hole. So I'm going to just select this 1/4 inch size, but if you want to select any other size, you can of course select it from this list. In this case, I'll change maybe from hex screw to hex bolt, and now this is the 1/4 inch size which I'll select. And now we have the fit option. So you can select the tight fit, the loose fit, or the normal fit here. So that's the fit option. Now if you want to change these standard sizes, then you can check this box, and if you are just satisfied with whatever the standard size is, then uncheck this, and now we are ready to add the holes. In this case, I'll uncheck all of these options because I want to now add the hole with the standard sizes. So everything is now unchecked, and I've selected this standard size. Now I'll just add the hole. Now to add this hole, you need to now go to positions. So once you have made these changes, go to position, and here you need to select the face on which you want to add the hole. So I'll select this face, and I'll add the first hole here. Now if you want to add more holes, you can do so like this. But in this case, as you can see, we are adding holes using points, and these points are not constrained, so they're added randomly. Now one of the best ways to constrain these points is with the help of a sketch. So you can make ready-made sketches and then select the points on those sketches as the hole points. And if you don't have ready-made sketches, you can still constrain it using the smart dimension. So here I'm going to use a smart dimension to constrain this. So I'll just constrain it with this. So I'm going to type 20 here, and similarly I'll select 20 here. Alright, so now this hole is completely constrained. Now for all the other holes, I'm just going to add the simple horizontal constraint here. Alright, then horizontal constraint here as well. And maybe I'll just make sure that these two remain vertical. So I'll select these two and I'll make it vertical. And I'm going to do the same for these two. So these two should remain vertical too. Alright, now we can add just a few constraints. So I'm going to type D here, and I'll select this, and so 20 here, and for this one also 20. And with that, all the holes are now fully constrained. As you can see, the color of these points are now black. Alright, so with that, let's exit out of this, and we have the hole as per our specifications. Now in this case, this hole is going all the way through both the parts, and that's because of the feature scope. Now if you don't want this hole to go all the way through both of these bodies, then you can select the correct feature scope. So select the hole and go to edit feature and scroll down in this list. So here you can see in the feature scope panel, we have both of these parts selected. Now in this case, you can just go to select bodies and just clear it out, and then select the body where you want this hole to be created. So in this case, if you just select it kind of like this, it will create hole only in this first body. Now apart from that, you can also select an option here. So here in the end condition, through all is selected, and that's why it's going to just go through all of the bodies. But if you select the correct condition, for example, up to next, it's just going to create hole up to the next end plane. So that's this one. So here you can just completely ignore the feature scope as well. So even when both the bodies are selected, for example, this one, it will still create hole up to this point when you have up to next selected. So with that, I'll click OK. And as you can see, it will create hole only up to next plane. So that's this one. All right. Now let's talk about creating hole on several planes. So here I have all of these holes created here, but now I'm just going to create a few points on different planes. So I'll go to sketch and I'll just add a sketch here on this plane, and I'm just using this small point for this one here. All right, now of course I'll just constrain this one too. So I'll just constrain it with a dimension of 4 unit here, and also I'll just ensure that these 2 points are constrained. So I'll just add 20. All right, so there we are, and maybe I'll just make it 5 unit, and I'll exit out of this, and also I'll add another point here. So sketch, and here also I'll add just 1 point here. All right, now again I'm going to constrain this. All right, so that's 50 by 40, and exit out of this sketch. So we have now 2 of these points on different planes. So let's go to hole again, and for that I'll go to features and hole wizard. Now in the previous example we selected a standard hole, but in this case let's make some tweaks in the standard hole, and for that I'm just going to start with the countersink. So that's going to be our template for this hole, and with that I'll select the NC inch and oval head kind of hole, and here in the size I'll leave 1/4 inch selected because we are of course going to make some changes here. Now in the fit you can select once again tight fit, normal fit, or the loose fit. So I'll leave the normal fit. And now we have this checkbox of custom sizing. Check this one and we have all of these custom sizing available for us. Now you can actually change the size of this hole. So if you create the hole now, it will just add the size which is defined in this standard, but you can see a visual reference here as well as to what these sizes actually are. So in this case I'm just going to make some changes. So I'll just change the top gap here to 0.2, and then this is the angle. So the countersink angle, I'll just make that 90, and here I'm going to change the hole diameter. So that was the countersink diameter, and this is the hole diameter. It should be less than the countersink diameter, so I'll just make it 0.1. All right, so we have now custom dimensions here for this hole. Of course this is not a standard hole and we are just using our own parameters here. Now if you don't want these, you can always click this box to return back to all the default conditions, all the default values, but I'll just keep these custom values. And now in the end condition I'll select up to next again because I just want to make hole up to the next plane. All right, now if you want a little bit of head clearance, you can check this one and you can with that apply a head clearance. So now the hole will start below the top plane. So if you want to, you can add a head clearance value. Maybe here I'll add a head clearance of 0.1. Now that's for the near side, and if you want it for the far side you can do that as well. So here we have the far side head clearance as well as the angle. So I'll just leave the defaults here 0.15 and 90 degrees. So that's 0.15 inch and 90 degrees. Again we have the feature scope, so I'll leave the defaults, and then we have finally the tolerance option. So if you want to add again tolerances here, you can certainly add that here. So here I'll select countersink angle 90, and the tolerance type is I'm going to select limit. Now you can specify the upper or lower limit here. So you can specify the tolerance values here if you want to, and also you can select the number of decimal places for the tolerances. Now it's always recommended to keep the same number of decimal places as the unit. So if you have just 2 decimal places in the drawing unit, just keep sure the tolerance is also using the same number of decimal places. So I'm not going to change anything here. But if you want to, you can certainly specify a smaller kind of tolerance values, for example 0.01 here and maybe 0.02 here. All right, so this is something which you can certainly specify. All right, so I'll just do that, and with all of these settings you can now click OK. Now as you can see, we have made several changes here, and if you want to save all of these changes, you can do that using this first option here. So just click on this plus icon here, add to favorites, and now you can specify a name here. So let's call it SourceCAD countersink hole. All right. So that's a name which I've selected. Click OK. And now here we have this SourceCAD countersink hole added in this list. So whenever required, you can now just select this one and it will apply all of these settings. All right, so we have done that. Now go to position and here we can apply the position. So you can of course select a plane, but in this case we want to apply this hole on two different planes, this plane and this one. And for that I'll select 3D sketch. All right, here is the first point and then here is the second point. All right, so we have done that. Now if you want to add this hole maybe on other planes as well, you can just select a new point, and when you are satisfied just click OK. And here we have it. So we have these two holes added here and then this one too. So this one is of course not constrained, and you can always constrain it just by going back to this option, but these two are constrained and we constrained it in the sketches. Now if you want to check it, you can actually create a section view. So let me just do that. So I'll go to section and I'll just move it all the way to this point just to see this hole, and you can see it here. So it's from here to here, and all the parameters which we have added here are kind of applied to this hole as well. So here as well as here, and you can see these holes as well, as they are added only in accordance with the settings that we have applied. So here is the hole, so only up to the plane that we selected. So that's how basically you can create simple holes in SolidWorks.